The Super Mario Galaxy games have always been my favorite. They offer a wide variety of gameplay and the majority of these games are a blast to play. And one of the reasons the gameplay is so strong in these games is because of the power-ups. Each one of them has its up and downs and they are used to create some very creative challenges. So today, I'm gonna be ranking every power-up in the Super Mario Galaxy games. This also includes the spin drill and the Yoshi fruits. This will be based on how useful the power-up is in its presented scenarios, how fun it is to use, and how well the games use the power-ups in their levels. So without further ado, let's get started. 13. Spin drill. I'm not even sure if you can call this a power-up because it's pretty much only used as a gimmick to solve puzzles and timing challenges, but oh well. If there's one thing that the spin drill does well, is to make for some pretty creative level design. One moment you're avoiding amps by drilling down at the right time, the next you're defeating gigantic Koopa Troopas, and at one moment you're even flooding an entire planet. Spin Dick introduces you to this power-up and it does it very nicely. The challenges are creative, but none of them are too difficult. And of course you have the classic boss fight against Dig-a-Leg. It's even used in the final Bowser Galaxy in a pretty clever way by having you avoid bonsai bills. Unfortunately, there are some filler levels that try to use the spin drill in cool ways, but fail. The best example of this is in Flipsville Galaxy, where it's used in a gravity switching room with either silver stars or purple coins, and it turns more into a waiting game than really anything else. So yeah, the spin drill is cool, but in terms of its strength, well, it's pretty much useless. You can defeat enemies with it, but it doesn't really come in handy in any scenario. 12. Spring Mushroom. I know you all saw this coming sooner or later. The Spring Mushroom is infamous for its bad controls and slow movement, and while I do agree with that, I don't think it's complete garbage. It's still quite fun to control it, and it's used in relatively cool ways. Obviously, we know about its usage in Toy Time Galaxy, where you have to traverse a giant Mecha Bowser and destroy a stack of rocks to make it explode. And later, it's also used in the boss fight against the Underground Gunner. Matter Splatter also uses it together with Moving Matter, and it makes for a admittedly pretty slow but still pretty cool challenge. In Galaxy 2, it's only used in Chompworks Galaxy, where it's used in probably one of the most forgettable missions in the game. So even if it's not used very often, I think it's only a good thing. If the power-up was used more often, it would have been too much. 11. Bee Mushroom. That's right, you eat a mushroom and turn into a freaking bee. I've never really been a big fan of the Bee Mushroom in the Galaxy games, and that's for multiple reasons. The main reason being that Bee Mario moves ridiculously slow. Mario in the Galaxy games is already relatively slow compared to games like Mario Odyssey and Bowser's Fury, and normally I don't really mind it at all. But both the horizontal and vertical movement for the Bee form is way too slow, and the movement is also very insensitive and unresponsive. As for how the games utilize the Bee suit, well, it's quite a mixed bag. The Honey Hive Galaxy is the galaxy to introduce you to the Bee Mushroom, and it does it pretty well. I was never really a huge fan of this galaxy, but I have grown to like it a bit more lately. The way the first mission combines the Bee Mushroom with gravity is pretty cool, and the boss fight against Bugaboom is pretty interesting as well. Gold Leaf Galaxy uses the power-up in more creative ways, like combining it with Quacks or using it during the boss fight against the Underground Gunner. Then there's also Honeyclimb Galaxy, which actually uses it in pretty creative ways by having you avoid meteors or bugs while sticking to the wall. The Bee Mushroom also appears in Sand Spiral, but there it's just ridiculously outclassed by the Boo Mushroom. And of course, don't forget about Sea Slide Galaxy, where it's used in the Silver Stars and the Purple Coin missions, two of the worst and most boring missions in the entire game. In Mario Galaxy 2, however, oh boy. It's only used in two galaxies, being Honey Bloom and Honey Hop, and both of these galaxies suck. Honey Hop does literally nothing to stand out, and it's one of the most filler galaxies in the game. And while Honey Bloom does have some platforming to do, the Bee Mushroom is just too slow, making the level feel like a slog at times. So while the Bee Mushroom is put to some good use in the first game, and it certainly has its charm, I'm not a big fan of the power-up. 10. Red Star. It's basically the wing cap, but not garbage. The Red Star is probably one of the rarest power-ups in any Mario game, since you only unlock it by getting the 6 Grand Star, and it's only in a Comet Observatory and a Gateway Galaxy's Purple Coin mission. The Red Star allows you to fly basically freely around the entire level, and unlike the wing cap, it actually controls quite well. Mario also just looks sick when wearing it. The only thing that keeps this power-up from being any better though is just its very few usages in the game. I really wish an entire galaxy or mission was made for the Red Star. That would have been insanely cool. 9. Bullberry. It's another power-up purely used as a gimmick, but this time to light up up the road around Yoshi. The power-up is only used in 2 galaxies, being Haunty Halls and Sweet Mystery. These mostly revolve around the power-up timer and making it to safe platforms before the timer runs out. And the levels are built around this mechanic in very clever ways, like having to get a key or platforming across moving platforms or up a cake or bookshelf. And the levels even give you some optional challenges, like getting every coin from a question mark block or the comet medal in Sweet Mystery. The power-up itself though is very niche, and it's only useful in these scenarios, obviously. It's a cool concept and executed quite well, but otherwise not useful at all. 8. Rock Mushroom. Yep, you become a freaking boulder and can roll around and freaking smash into everything, which even includes bowling pins? Yeah, that's quite weird, but still really cool. The Rock Mushroom allows you to not only roll around, obviously, but it also makes horizontal movement a lot more restrictive, which can lead to some fun challenges. Boulder Bowl Galaxy is the one to introduce you to the power-up, and it does it quite well. You can smash into a bridge to lower it, the Octogumas and Octoglass on the second planet, and of course you have the boss fight against Rolladillo. Freeze's Lake Galaxy also uses the Rock Mushroom and makes you smash into these snow statues. It's really forgettable, but still relatively fun to do. And Melty Monster Galaxy, while insanely out of place, also has 2 missions involving the Rock Mushroom. The first one being the one with the long rolling lane, and the second being the Chimps Bowling minigame, both of which are really fun to do and revolve more around the power-up's restricted horizontal movement. So while the power-up is pretty cool and looks awesome, the insensitive movement does make it a little bit difficult to use. It makes sense to balance out the power-up, but as a result, controlling it can be a bit awkward. 7. Boo Mushroom. This one is quite similar to the Bee Mushroom in some aspect, in the fact that you can also float around, but this time much better and faster. You can also go invisible for a second and go through certain walls and grates, and are vulnerable to specific light sources. In Mario Galaxy 1, it's used in the Ghosty Galaxy to save Luigi from the Haunted Mansion, and it's a solid introduction to the power-up. It's also used in Sand Spiral Galaxy, where you traverse a tube filled with swaying lights and bats, as well as in Boo's Boneyard to race against the spooky speedster. These levels really make use of both the power-up strengths and weaknesses, and put your skills in using it to the test. Then there's Galaxy 2, which only uses it in 1 level, and while the level is alright, it kinda comes out of nowhere. The power-up itself is really cool though, and I really wish there were more levels in the second game using it. 6. Blimp Fruit. Yoshi turns big and can float up with style, or by blowing out air. Ew. The Blimp Fruit is mostly used to float up something tall, like a tower or a tree, and in some scenarios it's pretty boring and uninspired, but sometimes the levels add some platforms or lava monsters in a way and make you avoid them. Most of these challenges are pretty fun to do, especially because of the Blimp Fruit's relatively slow nature, and while that sounds bad, it's actually not. There's honestly not much more to say about this power-up, since it's pretty basic and used very rarely. It's still quite fun to use though. 5. Rainbow Star. You're basically invincible. How much better can a power-up get? Well, of course in this context there's more that matters. The Rainbow Star is mostly seen in bonus areas, and used to kill a couple of enemies here and there, but it's also used to either get a star from a golden chomp in Gusty Garden, run across a rotating spiraling platform in Sand Spiral, or kill a bunch of Spinies or Octumas as an extra mission, and that's pretty much it. It's quite fun to run around at supersonic speed and bash into dozens of enemies, but there's not much more to it. 4. Fireflower. Here we have the classic Mario power-up, and the Galaxy games mostly implemented this power-up really well. You can still throw fireballs and kill enemies with them, or even light torches and destroy snow statues. However, the main caveat here is that the power-up only lasts for 20 seconds, and while that sounds like a bad thing, the Galaxy games use this limitation to their advantage in a level design, and it makes the limitation more of a challenge. The Fireflower is mostly used to light torches before it runs out, like in Freeze Flame or Deep Dark Galaxy. And in the second game it's used to destroy crates, a huge Bowser statue, and of course for the crate burning minigames. And they're actually pretty cool challenges. And of course don't forget about Squizzard, where the power-up is also used in a really cool way. So even though the power-up is pretty basic and the timer kinda sucks, the games do use it in pretty cool ways. 3. Ice Flower. Run on water or lava and even freeze it at the same time. The Ice Flower is mostly used in Beach Ball and Freeze Flame. In Freeze Flame it's used to climb up the mountain by freezing some fountains, but also to skate across a long obstacle course with moving platforms with ice or lava. These missions are all incredibly fun to do and can also be pretty nifty at some points. Beach Ball uses it to climb up the secret planet, and it's once again a really fun challenge because you have to make it up before the power-up wears off. The Ice Flower is also used in Deep Dark Galaxy, but it's literally just to freeze a few fountains and it's honestly very lame. The rest of the challenges are very fun though, and the power-up is also just extremely fun to use. games. 2. Dash Pepper. You give Yoshi a spicy snack and he runs at freaking light speed, even to the point where he can run on water or up walls. Don't get fooled though, because it's also much harder to control Yoshi since he runs so ridiculously fast. Of course, we all know Hytale Falls Galaxy, where you have to run Yoshi up large walls or moving platforms and avoid several pillars. It's a really cool galaxy and a very fun challenge to do. It's also used to collect purple coins in one of the hardest missions in the game, as well as in the final Bowser Galaxy to run between two giant lava walls. There's not much more to this power up, but it's such a fun one to use and it also allows for some really creative challenges. And number 1 is the Cloud Flower. I mean, can it really be anything else? The Cloud Flower is infamous for its fun and broken nature, and it could not be more fun to use. I mean, creating clouds from thin air and using them as platforms sounds like a cool idea, and it's a blast to do. The Cloud Flower is introduced in Fluffy Bluff, and while this level plays it quite safe, it does do a good job of teaching you the basics. The power-up is also used to fight Bugaboom, avoid lava in the final Bowser Galaxy, or to fight Bowser Jr. in one of the best boss fights in the game, the Boomsday Machine. Even the very final galaxy uses the Cloud Flower to traverse an electric labyrinth. There's unfortunately also some fillery levels for the Cloud Flower, like the Cloudy Court's waiting game or Twisty Trial's uninspired copy-paste level from Sunshine. But the majority of these levels are very fun to play, and the power-up is also a joy to play around with. Definitely the best power-up in the series. So, that was it for this ranking. Let me know what your favorite and least favorite power-ups in the Galaxy games are in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye!